Carlos Sainz really started the 2024 F1 season with a bang, grabbing a podium spot at the Bahrain Grand Prix. He was fourth at the start, but quickly showed what he's made of, even after falling behind Sergio Perez at one point. Sainz didn't hold back. He went all out, overtaking his own teammate Charles Leclerc not just once but twice, but despite all of his mighty efforts, he just couldn't get past that massive wall of the two Red Bulls. Sainz finished the race just 2.5 seconds behind Perez, racing on the harder compound C1 tyres, and had to deal with steering issues after bumping into Perez early on. Despite these hurdles, Sainz kept pushing. For a moment, it even seemed like he might catch up to Perez just in time, but he just couldn't close that gap. After the race, Sainz shared some insights about the RB20 cars, which probably spells trouble for the rest of the grid. He said, "You guys need to consider that we've been testing here 3 days, and I've been seeing that Red Bull degradation on soft, and it's exactly the same as ours on the hard. So, as soon as I knew Red Bull had a new soft for the last stint and Checo had it, it's not like I went, okay, this is my chance." So essentially, the Red Bull cars are just as good on the softer tyres as others are on the harder ones. Despite being named Driver of the Day by the fans for his valiant drive, Sainz wasn't too shocked that he couldn't overtake Perez. "I was in a bit of an uncomfortable position because you're there in the 2-3 second margin, which is where you get all the dirty air, but you don't get the advantage of the DRS and the slipstream, so you're just sliding a bit more," said Sainz. Even though he was close to Perez, the dirty air made it tough for Sainz to get close enough to really challenge him. "If I would have been within a second or maybe 5 seconds behind, I think on the hard tyre, I could have maybe showed a bit more the true pace of the car and my pace today. But in that 2-3 second window is the worst place to be, and I could never mount any proper challenge on Checo today." Sergio Perez seemed to agree with Sainz, saying that it wouldn't be as easy to keep up with a driver once the DRS advantage is lost. "I saw Carlos. He lost DRS early on and he was just out of contention for a while," Perez said. "The car ahead going straight into the clean air is basically going on his own, has to use more of his tyres, so it's a bit of a disadvantage if you are fighting. I think in places like Baku or even Jeddah, I think the racing is going to be different. It does create a difference to the car ahead in the first few laps, so it's going to be interesting, I think." With the new DRS rules introduced this year, drivers are now allowed to activate it a lap earlier than in previous seasons. This move aims to encourage more overtaking, which, according to Perez, introduces a new strategic element to the competition. "I think a lot of strategy comes into play, especially with how sensitive the tyres are to pushing," he said. "On one side, you want to push to get out of the DRS or to get into the DRS, and then on the other hand, you want to save tyres because we all know how sensitive the tyres are in the first few laps to pushing. So it's a very fine line. As soon as I saw I didn't have pressure from behind, I decided to manage my tyres, and it paid off instead of getting into the DRS battle. So then I could overtake them, no problem. It's going to be track dependent. It's going to be, I think, a very tricky season going 24 races like that. We had the new rule in the sprints last year. It's going to be a challenge." Carlos Sainz, however, is feeling much more optimistic with this year's Ferrari SF24. The Spaniard feels that this time around he's finally behind the wheel of a car he can truly push to the limits. Reflecting on last season, the SF23's performance often fell short during races, although it showed some of its potential. During qualifying, the car's race pace just wasn't there, especially on tougher tracks. Sainz recalls the frustration. "It's a bit of a relief because the last race where I was attacking was Austria, and we're talking about 13, 14 races ago," Sainz said. "And then the rest of the races last year, you just had to manage, look in the mirrors, control your pace, and there were very little opportunities to go and overtake people." Sainz's passion for racing shines through when he talks about his driving style. "I love going racing, and I love going overtaking, being aggressive, attacking. And with last year's car, it was simply impossible to do that. I remember at the car launch saying, this year, I wish we had a car to go racing and attack people, and don't care too much about the tyres. And it's exactly what we got. I got an attacking race, a really good race pace, and from there, everything felt really good to finish P3. I enjoyed it a lot." Sainz's performance in Bahrain, where he secured a podium finish, indicates that the SF24 might just provide the competitive edge Ferrari needs. While acknowledging Red Bull's dominance, especially with Verstappen's unrivaled pace, Sainz remains hopeful for more competitive races ahead. The advantage of Red Bull in Bahrain is what you saw very, very clearly, Sainz thought. I think it's interesting how they can keep the C3 soft tyre alive for a bit longer than the rest, how they tend to overheat a bit less. Maybe that's what makes the car also not as competitive in qualifying and so good in the race in a track like Bahrain. Now we need more samples, but I expect Red Bull always to be better in the race like they were last year. Look at the last 8 races between Charles and me. We managed to do some pole positions, a lot of front rows, but then Max in the race was pulling away massively and Checo was always able to overtake us. I hope that this year's trait is not as exaggerated and we've made a good step forward in that sense. Now Sainz has his eyes set on the upcoming race in Jeddah next week, given the stark contrast between its fast street circuit and the Bahrain track layout. With Ferrari clinching the position of the second fastest team in Bahrain, Sainz anticipates a shuffle in the pecking order at Jeddah, particularly noting McLaren's potential to edge closer to the front. For McLaren's performance on high-speed circuits last year, like Silverstone, Japan and Qatar, has Sainz convinced his former team could show some of their true pace this weekend. "Let's see the differences first," Sainz said, speaking about the upcoming Saudi race. "We go with this new 2024 car, so it will be a bit of a surprise for everyone to see where we are. I expect the cars like the McLaren. Last year, they were very good in high-speed circuits to be competitive there, but you know, our car has also improved in the high speed, so hopefully we can be also stronger." McLaren's Lando Norris secured a 7th place finish in Bahrain, positioning McLaren as the 4th fastest team, marking a significant leap from their performance at the same point last year. The team's dramatic turnaround last year from being one of the slowest teams on the track to being one of the front runners later in the year adds to the anticipation for their performance in Jeddah. Norris shares this optimism, predicting that the team will fare well in the upcoming race. "It's a bit more high speed, a bit more medium speed, which normally suits us," he noted. Despite anticipating certain challenges, Norris is excited for the race. It's also a track which maybe should suit us a bit more. So excited for it. Norris highlighted some of the learning curves the team faces with the new MCL38. "Plenty of things for us to learn because it's so different, this car, than what we had last year. More challenges, more question marks, but on the whole, I'm hoping it suits a little bit more." So, what do you guys think about Sainz's comments about the RB20? Do you think there's any chance the Ferraris might catch them by surprise sometime during this season? Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. Leave a like and subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with the latest F1 news.